Welcome in to another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. Tonight is the big episode 200. So come celebrate with us where we're going to get some of our tinfoil hat freak on tonight, talking about all the possible offseason moves and rumors with your Los Angeles Kings. So get in the chat, like and subscribe. You know what to do. Let's go. As always, that intro was brought to you by Ezera. The new song Expired Medicine out now anywhere you listen to music. Boys. I hope we're ready to go. I shined at my tinfoil hat for
give a nice little polish.
That might be a record how quickly you broke that out to start the show.
Yeah, I'm ready to zoom into my back wall, start putting up some string on how all this is going to work out for everybody. But this is everybody's favorite time. It's, Marner's coming to LA. Oh, you're full of crap. Oh, Kyrie's available. He's not available. This player could be available. People are looking into this option. Let's trade Liam Greentree for Connor McDavid. All kinds of stuff being floated around. And then people are like, no, that's not a good trade. Kings should get more than Connor McDavid for Liam Greentree. Just all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And then you always have the Debbie Downers, are probably the people who are living in reality, saying we're probably going to sign Tyler Jeannot to the 3-year deal at $2 million per and re-sign Gavrikov at $9 million AAV. But it's a time to be alive, boys. How we doing?
Yeah, you said it best. This is besides the trade deadline, second favorite time of year, outside off the ice, I guess. So yeah, I mean, I've been on Puckpedia like crazy, looking at who's available, looking at what we can tinker with. I'm excited. I'm excited for this episode. How you doing, Joe?
I'm a sucker. I admit it. I'm a sucker for rumors. I can't help it.
Yeah.
I don't think I acknowledge like most of it is a whole lot of crap. It's just fun. And I think I go into it without the I don't believe every rumor. I think if you go in believing every rumor, it can be really not a lot of fun. But I don't know. I think it's fun. It creates conversation. It creates debate. It creates an idea of interesting. Maybe whether it's a player or a position or a player type that you didn't think of before, it creates just a lot of different things that go on. And it's fun. I mean, we're in the middle of a really good looking Stanley Cup final series right now. And draft is around the corner, and for the teams that are not in it, this is where it starts to get fun. I'm looking forward to it. Rando?
Yeah, it's doing great. I'm starting to get into my draft crunch here. We had NFL Draft Pros or NHL Draft Pros on last week. Part 2 is going to be Thursday, so join in for that one to see a lot more names that could be available for the Kings in the back half of the first. So I'm doing that, and all this stuff's going on. I know you guys could probably talk full hour on the final going on right now, but I've been trying to catch a little bit of that. With it starting at 7 my time, I don't get off till 8, so I'm getting home and it's the mid-second period. So luckily both games have gone to overtime, so I've still been able to watch some decent hockey, or 2 of the games have. But I haven't been able to sit down and watch, and then I pretty much was living. In any game I couldn't get online, I was going to the bar to watch. And so my girl was like, I got to just stay home and watch the final now that it's not the Kings or whatever. So it's been good. I've been trying to catch as much as I can. Just working a ton. Haven't really been watching much baseball. Finished my last dynasty football draft for the rookies. Got your boy Amarian Hampton there, Russ.
Nice.
The 102. Nice. So hopefully he brings me some fantasy points this year. But yeah, I always get excited for this kind of stuff, and it's hope for people who want the offseason to bring hope to the team. This is the time of year, unless you just don't believe in your franchise, period. But for the most part, it's hope for teams whether it's getting rid of a bad contract or bringing one in. So I appreciate you guys getting in the chat. Please hit that like button. Do you guys
and
want
it's a new GM. It's a new GM,
Yeah.
right? That adds a whole other wrinkle to this, right?
Yes, it is. And I think that's the big wrinkle. Like how much does he make changes? He brought in a guy that he's very familiar with for more of the draft stuff, the scouting stuff, but he kept our team intact. So, what is he looking for compared to what Rob Blake is looking for? Is it a big change? Not a big change? Is he trying to do all kinds of things? All of those types of stuff leave so many possibilities in the eyes for Kings fans. Because if it was Rob Blake, I would say Mitch Marner is a non-existent option. Like, I still think that that's the type of player that he would go out and get. But with Holland, it's anybody is there. Gwen, have a safe flight. Got aboard LA bound. Have fun. Catch up later. Thanks, Gwen. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Gwen. Say hi to Jordan Kyrie for us in St. Louis. Maybe put in the
There you go.
on your way to LA. See if you can bring him on the plane with you.
Plenty of other fans in here. Terry with the Go Kings Go. Kez Itch, let's go, boys. Steen Gasson, miss you guys. Go Kings Go. Well, we're about to get into it here, and we're going to start with the big name that I've already mentioned. There's quite a few forward names out available by trade or by free agency, and none bigger than Mitch Marner. We talked a little bit about it on the pod, so we won't go on a couple weeks ago, so we won't go super in depth. But the rumors have heated up even more with him narrowing down the teams. Some insiders saying LA is not even in the conversation. Some people, LA is heavy in the conversation. Some say he wants to go to a tax-free state. Some say he wants to play for a winner, but he doesn't want to be the number one player on the team because he wants less stress. Like all kinds of different vibes coming out there. Maybe what do you guys believe about the vibe? And let's kind of go over like who Mitch Marner is and what does he bring to the team.
Well, as far as like what to believe in, it's hard. It's all rumors right now, especially for free agents. Because with trade players, like there's going to be a lot of speculation because those players are already signed. We had the scouting combine come on, or just happened, I think, last weekend, and that's where all the GMs got together and probably discussed what players were actually available. There were some agents there. I think I saw someone, I forget whose article it was, but they mentioned Ken Holland talking to Pat Brisson at the scouting combine. And Pat Brisson, I believe, is Gavrikov's and Marner's agent. So could be discussing Marner. I don't know if they can be discussing Marner technically, but most likely discussing what Gavrikov's situation. Maybe a little hint of Marner. Maybe that's hush-hush. But, yeah, with Marner, I mean, it's as far as, like, how real it is, I just go off this. I mean, there's Puckpedia teamed up with CoolBet, and that's a Canadian betting website, and they put out odds to see who the best team was, or the most favorable team was to sign Mitch Marner. And I don't know how much stock you can really put into that, but the team with the highest odds or the best odds to get Mitch Marner is part of the LA Kings. So it's like, okay, well, maybe there is a little smoke with the fire there or whatever. So I don't know. Yeah, I get pretty excited when I think about Mitch Marner in a Kings jersey. So hopefully there's a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I listen. I'm certainly hopeful for Marner. I'm not expecting Marner because it just seems like the Kings don't really land the big one for one reason or another. Like we can go back to the Kovalchuk thing. We can go back to Brad Richards. I think they were in on it. Danny Heatley at one point. Gaborik before they traded for him. I think there was a lot of that, and it just seems like they don't land usually the big guy, which is, that's okay. It doesn't have to be. But that said, I'm certainly hoping that Mitch Marner is somebody that they pursue. I figured they would. Randon, I like, you had said, and there's a comment here from I don't know if it's Jacques Wixon. Worries me when a guy doesn't want to be the guy but wants to be paid like the guy. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get $13 million and gonna be like you're going to go somewhere and then not be the guy. If you're getting $13 million, you're the guy, whether you like it or not. You are. If you're not the guy, you are among the guys. So that said, it's a little different being the guy in LA versus needing to be the guy in Toronto. So listen, this should be a no-brainer, I think, for any any fan of pretty much any team looking for a star. Like, this is a no-brainer. I understand it to a point in Toronto that they just need to change. There needs to be a shakeup. There needs to be a change. You know, whether if it ends up being Marner, obviously it looks like that's to be the case. But for everybody else in the league, I mean, what more could you want? You know, from a player. I mean, I'm in on Mitch Marner very much so. I think the rumored or the projected, depending on, I think Evolving Hockey has him just a tick below 13 million on a 7-year deal. Yeah, I mean, I'm there. I mean, comfortably there, and he'll probably get closer to 14. So I have no problem doing that, Russ. I don't know. I'm assuming you're in the same spot, but
yeah, I mean, if you're trying to get a player like Mitch Marner, he's obviously going to have to be paid. I mean, he's going to have a ton of suitors. I'm sure every team that has the cap space to do it is at least checking in to see what he's looking for. When you look at the Kings, though, and I guess we'll just talk specifically about on-ice need and fit for the Kings, because, I mean, we saw just in the short term what Andrei Kuzmenko, a right-shot skilled forward, was able to do just with the power play alone, and that he was almost a point-per-game player after being traded for LA. Think about a player like Mitch Marner, who's also a right-shot forward who's all that skill and some, not to mention the two-way game too, I think is a little bit more underrated than maybe a lot of people give it credit for, and myself included when you look at some of the numbers. But I mean, you just compare apples to oranges, you're thinking like, man, if you have a player like Mitch Marner, I mean, you would think the fit is perfect, right? When we just saw it with Kuzmenko, you would think it happened with Marner. The thing that's tough, though, is like, okay, you should be paying a player like Mitch Marner, like I just said, it's going to be 13 to 14 million. As far as the cap space go, that really limits a lot of stuff you're able to do in other parts of the lineup. I mean, you're probably looking at, I think I had an article out the other day on the website. I think after you extend Laferriere for what his contract's going to be, and I assume it's going to be the same thing Forrester got from Philadelphia, which was 2 years at $3.75 million. So you're thinking right around there, maybe a little higher, I don't know, but right around there. And then you give Marner his contract, you're only looking at like $9 million to fill 5 spots. And that's with letting Gavrikov walk. So you're talking about a hole in the top 4 of the defensive rotation there, like a big hole that Vladislav Gavrikov was able to fit. And we could discuss and argue like how well he fit that role and what his impact was on the defensive side compared to what the Kings already have. But when you only have $9 million to fill 5 spots, that kind of limits a lot of stuff you're able to do. The thing is, though, like Ken Holland is coming in here, and he said himself he's looking to be aggressive. He's not going to come in here on a short-term contract, 3 years, and not try to put his stamp or try to put his mark on this roster. So, yeah, go after Marner. Make a trade to clear out some cap space. Maybe you trade out Trevor Moore. Maybe you elevate Alex Turcotte, give him that role, because we saw some flashes in Turcotte, especially on the first line, that he can play in that elevator role. So maybe he gets that spot. And you have some other flexibility, really, to maybe bring in another solid defenseman to fill Gavrikov's spot that maybe can move the puck a little bit better. And we'll talk about some of those pieces too. So, I mean, all in all, I'm all for the Marner situation. It would just have to involve a little bit more creativity from Ken Holland. I think he's the guy to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at some of the teams that have been supremely successful, like Vegas, if people want to admit it or not, they just bring in the big talent and they figure out the cap on the backside. They're like, okay, well, hey, if we're going to bring this guy in, we're going to have to cut this guy, do this kind of whatever. And, you know, the Rams did it for a while with a stars and scrubs roster. You know, I know it's a different league, but, you know, yeah, if we have to get top heavy on the first line and get a superstar that's a 100-point player, 100-point per game player, and is a point per game player in the playoffs for most of his career, like, I'm fine with that. We'll figure it out. If I have to have Mervara as the third pair D and our Diesel suffers a little bit, you know, it is what it is. Like, and then, you know, you make moves mid-season, move some people out, and you collect a D at the trade deadline. Like, even with the D core the way it's at, like, say Gavrikov doesn't get re-signed, and it's Mervara, Edmondson, and Mikey Anderson on the left side, and Doughty, Spence, and Clark on the right side. Like, that's not a Stanley Cup winning D core. That's a D core that can still get you points. And then you can make moves mid-season to adjust that or move some things out and make yourself, you know, a Stanley Cup roster there. So, I mean, Mitch Marner's don't come around very often. And just like the Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani's don't come around very often. And they went out and got the big fish, and they said, we'll figure out the money, and they deferred it for 7,000 years. And his great grandchildren will get money well until their 70s. But you know, you got to figure out a way to do it, and I think it's not Marner or bust, but it's let's go make a statement. Let's go make a statement. Like why not? Like I don't know. I mean, could you imagine the fan base just by having this all summer? Like if he got signed, he's going to get signed day one probably or day two, and having this all summer. Like that's just, I think.
Yeah.
Well, he would easily be. I mean, if he got signed by LA, that would easily be one of the biggest NHL stories going into the season, right? I mean, the biggest free agent
Of course.
going into a market like LA.
Yeah.
I don't think there would be a lot of other big stories. I mean, so yeah, I think Ken Holland is coming in here to make a statement, whether that is Mitch Marner or something, but I'm sure he's going to be aggressive here.
Can I ask you guys, let's back up a second. You know, we're talking about Marner, we're talking about right shot forward. So where do you guys see or rank like the holes on this roster? Be it actual holes, like right now Gavrikov isn't signed, so technically that's a hole. But like where do you see like the actual holes on this roster or where they really need to upgrade because that obviously steers some things because it's not just they don't have like going into the deadline last year, you know, they needed a top 6 scoring winger. Okay, they got one. You know, in Kuzmenko. Going into the offseason, it's a little bit different, right? Because there's multiple pieces they need, and probably depending on who you ask, depends on how you rank those pieces and where you want to prioritize, which is why I'm sure for some people, Marner maybe is less of a priority just because they need a D first, or some people want to prioritize, listen, they're losing like 2/3 of the fourth line. Like you got to make sure that that's filled. So where do you see, Russ, like kind of the biggest area of need and what are the areas of need?
I think the biggest one for me is Gavrikov's spot. And I mean, I guess you could just say top 4 defenseman. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'm getting to the point where we need like a legitimate like LD1 at this point. Like it's been great having Mikey Anderson in that spot. And I think him and Doughty have been pretty solid. I would like to see Mikey Anderson kind of do what he's done with Drew Doughty with Brant Clark and give those two kind of free reign. Because I mean, you think about it, once Doughty's gone, and I'm assuming Clark and Anderson are probably going to be here for the long haul, that's going to be a defensive pair that's going to probably be together for the next, 5-7 years or so. So maybe get those two together and bring in a legitimate LD, one. I mean, we've been talking about this for years, it feels like. I mean, that's so it's always going to be on top of my wish list. As far as like right shot, legitimate, top 6 forward or skill, whatever you want to call it, I don't know if that's necessarily like a huge need, right? Like, I mean, we saw this team be a pretty solid, legitimate playoff team without Kuzmenko. I mean, they had their struggles in January, but I know once Kuzmenko came in and then the power play certainly got better and they were winning games, but it's not like this was a bad team without him. I mean, they were also, I mean, you could say the same thing about losing Doughty, but even then, I didn't think it was necessarily a huge need. It was just something that we all wanted come trade deadline. I mean, I guess second behind the defenseman, I would just say, just to quote Luc Robitaille, I think this team just needs some killer instincts. I mean, they signed players like Joel Edmondson and Tanner Jeannot, and I get it, Tanner Jeannot wasn't obviously playing in the playoffs, but they were trying to get bigger and heavier, and we didn't really notice that at all throughout the season. It didn't feel like there was really the Kings were this rough and scrappy, in your face type of team. They were just a real solid defensive structured team. And that's kind of what they've always been. I mean, you watched the Florida Panthers, especially the game last night, where it was the Oilers were doing the typical Oilers stuff that we've seen as Kings fans firsthand. And we always get up in arms as far as talking about look at what Darnell Nurse is doing. Look what Evander Kane is doing. Look what Corey Perry's doing. What the hell? And the Kings never really got any big pushback from that. They always just tried to stick to their mitts and just stay out of that stuff. But the Florida Panthers went right back at him and kind of, or almost seemed like they're winning the mental battle. And I get it, it's only been 3 games, but it's you come out of that game and Corey Perry's not really he's making that turtle gesture, but I mean, he's the one getting pointed and laughed at by Nikola Mikkola. So it's like, I think those type of players is what the Kings need. And I'm not saying like to go out and get like a Sam Bennett, who's certainly earning himself a good contract here in free agency, but like those are the type of players I think this Kings team needs. And so I don't know, but like it's tough because you look at the free agent list besides maybe Bennett, there's not that many available. So that's why I kind of go back to Ken Holland and hope he can have some creativity coming up here.
It's hard to out-rat the rat, right? You have 2 rats on Florida plus Sam Bennett. It's hard to out-rat the rats. Yeah, I mean, I think the smart move is probably to get some more puck movement defensemen on the roster and to have that more of an identity of the team. That's probably a smart move. Is there a player that just stands out that's that available? And it doesn't really have to be on the left side. Because like we could talk about it, you could trade Spence for a left shot and sign a right shot D that is formidable, or D's play on their offhand all the time. But that's the responsible probably move. But like I said, is how many times is a Marner available? Like, can't you find like a responsible puck moving defenseman that maybe not have a really high upside, but is just good on zone exits, responsible in his own end, and like has good feet for $2-3 million, probably, but you don't really find very many 100-point players floating around. But yeah, I think the responsible thing is to shore up the D, because Gavrikov is a good player and he did well last year, and that's probably going to be where the biggest hole is. But if you sign a guy making $4 or $5 million, and then you have to shore up the fourth line, you don't get Mitch Marner. So like then you're getting, maybe you're getting a Brock Besser or a Sam Bennett or whoever, which I think Sam Bennett's going to be outpriced. I think he'll probably be over 10-something million for what he is. But do you bring in some scrappy veterans and go big game hunting, or do you do maybe the responsible thing and try to build from the D? Does Holland even believe in that, or is he going to stick with the type of defense that Jim Hiller and Rob Blake have orchestrated there? That's what my only thought process is there.
Yeah, and I think I generally agree that I do think the D is pretty crucial. And I think it's funny, Russ, you mentioned about the toughness and stuff. I think Edmondson he probably got Lady Bing boats. The guy had like 20 penalty minutes all season for like everybody's talking about this. I don't understand it. He didn't even do what he was supposed to do. So I will say I agree. And I think if you're watching, like, to me, watching again these playoffs, like, look, these 2 teams in the finals each have 2, maybe 3 defensemen that would be number 1, 2, 3 on Los Angeles. Like, LA doesn't have a number 1 D as we sit right now, and they don't have a number 1 center as we sit right now that can compete at the level that we're seeing. Now, the center, it has to be Byfield. They're not going to go. I can't imagine you're going to see any sort of trade to go get a center, right? They're down the middle. They've got Byfield. They've got Kopitar. And at least for now, they got Philippe Deneau. Whether or not he's somebody that could be traded for cap reasons, I guess we'll see. But that has to be Byfield. Simple as that. Now, as far as their top defenseman, Doughty, I'm bullish on him returning to a closer form. But, he is getting a little bit older, and that's a tough injury to recover from. I give him credit for attempting to, but he needs to get back to form if he can. I mean, again, that's a tall ask coming off the injury at his age. So, more to your point, Russ, yeah, like, go if you got to try to find a defenseman in that top 4 that can, again, I am a believer in somebody that offers a little bit of a different dynamic and that can transport the puck a bit more. But so looking ahead, like, if Byfield elevates his game and that, like we saw the second half of the season, and is 1C, then the winger along with him is, that can be any number of guys. You have to be Mitch Marner. If you pair that with, you're going and getting a legitimate top 2 left D, right? You see some names in the chat there. We'll get into Kandre Miller's one of them, and Bo Byram's name was mentioned. So, like, yeah, I think that's the route that I'm going to try to take is I actually, as much as I'm melting on Marner, because I think if you got a chance to do it, you do it and you figure the rest out. But yeah, I mean, the D is very important. for multiple reasons, from a just an overall dynamic standpoint, but also the guys that they have there. I agree. Like Mikey's been a solid piece, but I just don't view him as like a top defenseman. Like when I look at like Gus Forsling or Aaron Ekblad or or even Jake Wallman. Like I'm just obviously talking about only the Cup final guys, but these are such high end defensemen that right now LA just doesn't have.
Look at Florida's defense, man. I mean, the trade for Seth Jones too. Like I'm kind of like very happy for that guy because he got a lot of grief for the contract that he got, and maybe a lot of people maybe said he was overpaid. I mean, the way he's been playing right now for Florida has been incredible. And then not to mention Aaron Ekblad, who is a free agent. Maybe we can talk about him. Gus Forsling, another solid guy. Nico Mikkola has been pretty solid for them too. But man, that defensive group is just. I mean, they have two defensemen on their top power play unit. Nobody does that, especially for a team as deep as they are up front too. To have that, like, that's incredible. And so, yeah, I mean, and credit to Florida because a lot of people talk about like the state tax having an impact on what Florida's been able to do. That's total BS. That's such BS. I mean, they got Sam Bennett pretty much for cheap because he wasn't really playing well, I believe, in Calgary. They made some shrewd trades. Brought in Matthew Tkachuk. A lot of people thought they overpaid for Matthew Tkachuk at the time. They got Reinhart from Buffalo, and they've had some homegrown talent. Barkov, Lundell is another solid player. Luosterainen kind of came out of nowhere too. Has been great for them, and Bobrovsky has been. They overpaid their goaltender. A lot of people thought. Now he's close to winning his second straight Stanley Cup championship. So it's like, man, credit to Florida. But yeah, just to go back on defense, I think that's exactly where the Kings need to go. It's just Joe, and this is kind of where I don't want to say lost, but I'm a little like, okay, like if this is like the discussion we're having, talking about the defensemen that the Kings need, like who is out there that we've legit, like, let's like keep it to names that are kind of out there, right? Like the Bowen Byram's, Keandre Miller, Aaron Ekblad's a free agent, Dante Fabro's a free agent. Are those like legitimate guys that can carry the load that Gavrikov did? Because like we can talk a lot of crap on Gavrikov and the player, and a lot of it maybe is misguided because you said it best the other day when it was just like he's just a redundant player on a team that doesn't need more shutdown defensemen when you already have Mikey Anderson, who's one of the best in the league. You paid Joel Edmondson last year 4 years to be another shutdown defenseman, and it's like, and Brant Clark and Jordan Spence maybe aren't there yet to be like the legitimate top four defenseman you need him to be. So when you're trying to bring in those pieces, I guess just to kind of summarize it, does a Bowen Byram or Keandre Miller fill that role?
I mean, they fill it differently. That's for sure. Because listen, Gavrikov is one of the best defensive defensemen in the league. I think he certainly played that way this past year. The year before, I think he was great down the stretch when they acquired him. He had a solid, I wouldn't say great, but solid first season of the 2-year contract. And in this contract year, he had a great season. But again, if Gavrikov if he was surrounded by like everybody else that was like a different style, I'd be all for keeping Gavrikov. Like if Gavrikov went to the Buffalo Sabres, that makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Look at the Rangers. They're talking about trying to sign Gavrikov and then pairing him with Adam Fox. I'm like, that sounds great. It's like perfect matchup for him.
Yeah, like I can see that. But for LA, it's been same old. And I just don't believe that this is a decor that can win a Stanley Cup. Now, to your question, is Bowen Byram somebody that can kind of carry a decor? Is Keandre Miller, are they true, legitimate 1Ds? No, they'd be LD1 in Los Angeles, in my opinion. I think they would be the best, arguably the best defenseman on the Kings right now, depending on Doughty's, how he comes back. So I think that it still helps, right? It's still an upgrade. I shouldn't say upgrade. It's different. And I think the Kings need different. I think the Kings need to do a better job at transporting pucks, because part of the reason why the LA Kings and Jim Hiller and why it's human nature for LA apparently to sit back is because, well, that's who you rostered. That's who you got. What is my upside limited thing that I say all the time? When you roster players that intentionally limit your upside, don't be surprised when your upside limited.
Yeah, there you go.
Like,
it's been too long.
I mean, I love what Mikey can do defensively and Gavrikov can do defensively. I don't know what Joel Edmondson does other than play minutes, but he played a lot of minutes. How do you expect to beat Edmonton when 3 of those 4 guys and a hobbled Drew Doughty? That's not going to do it. You can't move up and down the ice with those guys, and that's what you need in playoffs. Watch these playoffs. These teams aren't sitting back and trying to win 2-1. These teams are going after it, and the Kings don't have a defense group that can go after it right now. So, yeah, Bowen Byram is going to be different, and Keandre Miller is going to be different than Vladislav Gavrikov, but different is kind of what they need back there. And it's almost a disservice to Gavrikov that it's at the expense of him, if you will. Like if Mikey Anderson, for example, was not here, then yeah, like Gavrikov should stay. If Joel Edmondson wasn't here, this is maybe a different conversation, because you can then maybe plug in one of these a cheaper left shot that can, with a little bit more mobility on LD3, but that's just not the situation that Blake had put the team in when how he built the decor. So Gavrikov, because he's the free agent, just kind of has to be the I guess the odd man out, if you will. But again, he may not be, because there's still a chance he could come back.
What do you think? What do you think a trade like for Bowen Byram would be? Because it sounds like and I get kind of what you're saying, just real quick, is he's not necessarily like an LD1, but him being so much more different than what the Kings have had, that dynamic would just elevate his game probably even more. And I think when you have what's so lost too, and I think what the Kings management from the past has been missing so much, is like when you have these forwards who are so good at tracking back and so good defensively, you can limit a lot of the stuff or you can kind of hide a lot of the stuff that maybe some defensively inept defensemen, I guess, maybe are their weaknesses, I guess, on that side. But another thing too that I think gets so annoying when you talk about like there's like this discussion of like separating offensive defensemen, defensive defensemen, and we've heard Connor McDavid mention this a couple of times, how people ask him about his defense, and he keeps saying no, like we can play defense. I think a lot of just defense is just effort. It's just freaking effort. You don't have to be a skilled player to play defense. Defense is just being effort. If there's a guy sitting in your front of your crease, move him the hell out of there. Joel Edmondson never did that. We just never saw that effort. So it's like if you can preach and you can turn Kevin Fiala, one of the most skilled players in the NHL or wingers in the NHL, into this now quote unquote two-way player who's been great and maybe playing the best year of his career, even though it was just his points were down. Like, go out and get a skilled offensive defenseman and teach him defense. Help him with a little effort on that end. So it's like, bring in those players. And I think that's, I guess, just to kind of end my quote, like, we'll go back to Byram, but it's like, I think you need to find those type of players where it's like, okay, they have the skill already. They can move the puck. They can skate well. Now you just put them in a system that's already solid, that's already got a structure in place with the forwards in place, like the Kopitars, the Trevor Moores, the Philip Deneaus, Quinn Byfield, Adrian Kempe. I mean, you can go down the list about all these players that are just so solid defensively in the two-way game, and you give them a little skill in the back end to help them out a little bit on the offensive side.
Yeah, I agree. And so for Byram, a couple things. Like, first of all, this is not a guy that can't come in and like he was an LD3 and can he handle big minutes. The only guy that played more than him in Buffalo last year was Rasmus Dahlin. Byram averaged over 22 minutes a night. He averaged over 18 minutes a night at 5-on-5, so he can play top minutes. And I think he would like. Can we get away from this quote unquote defensive structured defenseman? Pair him with a guy that's more mobile. God forbid you have a couple guys mobile. Would that kill LA one time? Like, you know what? Put freaking Bo Byram with Drew Doughty. Why not? Like, what are we afraid of? Maybe mix it up a little bit. So, again, is Byram a true, like, LD1? I think there's still an avenue for that to come out of his game. Now, I remain way too bullish on him. I think that's in the realm of possibilities, but I would say right now he's more comfortably in LD2. But again, this is a guy that he played with Rasmus Dahlin on the top pair in Buffalo last year. And so he can handle playing big minutes. His numbers with Dahlin were very effective. That helps when you're playing with one of the best defensemen in the world in Dahlin. But still,
we have one of those. We have one of those on LA. Clark Train could help boost Byram's stats.
What I like about Byram is any one of the right D that the Kings have. That's a pair I want to see. I would love to see Byram with any one of those three, because I think it really helps his game a little bit. I think he can defend. He can defend with his skates. He can defend with his stick and his brain. So anyways, I am a very big Bo Byram fan. And I think that he's somebody that I'd be interested in. I don't know. Like the cost, Buffalo needs players today. They don't need any more prospects. They don't need any more picks. Yes, a right shot D would be good, but I kind of think like if Gavrikov was right-handed, they might give that guy like $10 million. That's the type of guy that Buffalo needs, because they've got a lot of these fluid skating defensemen. A Gavrikov probably fits okay there.
He proved that he could play the right side this year, though.
Well, good call. Very good point. Very good point. So, I think Buffalo could use some middle six scoring help. Now, I think Laferriere makes a lot of sense in a deal for Bo Byram. It's just what other pieces go? I don't know if if a 1-for-1 there does it justice. You probably need, I don't know if it's a Laferriere plus a Spence. Is that too much? As much as I think, honestly, the Sabres could probably use, if we're talking about freeing up cap space, Russ, they could probably use a guy like a Phil Deneau to really shore up the middle of the ice, to be honest.
Like a responsible guy to go with a lot of those young players.
Yeah. Like a pro 200-foot player. Again, I don't know that LA wants to trade Deneau necessarily, but here we are. If we're spitballing, that's a name. So, but that's Buffalo's going to need. There you go, Randon. Buffalo wants NHL help today, and if it's not a right D, then it's got to be a middle six capable forward that can play. And I think, when I look at the two players in Byram, who's mid-20s, Laferriere, low to mid-20s, I think that could make some sense. Again, it's just, I don't know what else is around that deal to make it work. Is a Laferriere plus what? That's what I do. Because it needs to be a plus.
Yeah,
right?
It's always going to be more than what fan base is expected to be, right? You're not trading Alex Turcotte straight up for Bo Byram.
Correct. Well, and again, that's to be clear, that's not a me wanting Laferriere out. That's not a me knocking Laferriere. That's just, hey, if you want to go get Bo Byram, you got to trade something, and like I said, you're going to have to add to Laferriere. So,
do you think more in a piece, or to make the cap space work, or do you think it's like a Spence and a Turcotte, like a Spence and then a Turcotte and then maybe a pick on top?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Maybe.
I think you'd have to include the first round pick this year if it's not a legitimate because the Kings aren't trading the last 1-for-1 for Bo Byram was Casey Middlestat, and there was a lot of maybe higher potential. Maybe Casey Middlestat at the time of the trade was viewed as maybe a more legitimate.
Having a good season at the trade. At the time of the trade, he was playing well.
Now he kind of floundered a little bit. Maybe that's just Colorado. So it's you look at what the Kings have now that can be that Middlestat. I would point to Alex Ferrier, like Joe said. I'm not high on trading him, but that's the type of player you probably have to get rid of plus some to get a player like Bo Byram. Because you think about it, Bo Byram's 24 years old. Mm-hmm. He was a 4th overall pick, and he's played like a top 5 pick coming out of the 2019 draft. So there's still a lot to grow from Bo Byram. We've already seen he's already won a Stanley Cup too, and he played really well for Colorado in the Stanley Cup playoffs that year. So he can perform in the playoffs as well. So you're paying a hefty penny to get a player like Bo Byram, not just for trade, but then you're gonna have to give him the contract too. And I believe his contract's gonna come in close to $7 million a year.
Yeah. Johnny Utah says Buffalo needs grit. Johnny, I'm just gonna be honest. What team doesn't need grit? If you're But
Johnny,
he's right.
That's his recipe. Every team needs grit. More grit.
He wants to sign Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett. I think who else is available?
Jamie
like,
Benn.
He's right with the Buffalo.
Trade for
though.
Matt Rempe. Like, let's.
Johnny's right. Buffalo could use kind of that again. That's why I know I don't. Maybe people don't feel like Phil Deneau brings grit, but I don't know. That's the type of grit that he plays with is what I want in a player. I really like what Phil Deneau brings, and so, anyways, I was just so you get an idea. There was a Locked On. The guy that hosts Locked On Sabres is he's a co-host local radio as well, and he was talking about just to let you know where some of the talk is there. He was talking about Brant Clark in a deal for Bo Byram. So again, I don't know that's a thing. I certainly don't think LA would do that, but like it depends on who, I think Buffalo would hear, just to put it in perspective, put it on, if you're putting the shoe on the other foot, if Buffalo hears the main piece coming back says Alex Laferriere, at least their fan base is going to be like, who? So, if you reset your expectations, I think for I guess every fan base, right? But I don't know. I think that's an interesting trade.
I want to revisit that Philip Deneau talk more because I've had thoughts of it later, but I want to do it later because I want to stick to the LD conversation because there's some other names that are out there. Keandre Miller is another name, and I'll just kind of start with him. Like, I think he's a good player. I think he's like borderline, I think not borderline, but legitimate, maybe top 4 defenseman. I wouldn't say he's like an LD1. I wouldn't put him on the same echelon as maybe like a Bo Byram. I don't think he's got that offensive flair to his game. I don't necessarily think he's like the most like gritty player if we're talking about grit either, even though he's spitting Drew Doughty's face. But I don't know. Like, I think about the player. I had a guy from a Rangers fan talk to me about it, and he had mentioned like, oh, you guys are going to trade Jordan Spence for Keandre Miller, and I'm thinking to myself like, it's not a terrible trade. It's just, do I want Keandre Miller? Right? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I don't even know if like that's even that much of an upgrade trading Jordan Spence for Keandre Miller, even though I think Keandre Miller got a lot of experience, has played some big playoff games, I believe, in his career. He's already at almost close to 400 games played in his career. I thought he was younger than that, which is crazy. But yeah. So, I mean, I just can't like fully get on board with trade for Keandre Miller, even though like I won't be disappointed. It's not as like exciting. You know what I'm saying?
You summed that up perfectly. I don't know what to make of Keandre Miller. I was actually talking to him about this. We had our hockey team's golf tournament over the weekend. We were talking about Keandre Miller. Me and the guy I coached with he was in the foursome, and he's like he wasn't a big fan of it. I was like, the way I put it was like, I think he's good. I think he's a solid top 4 defenseman. I don't know that he's been the player that maybe the Rangers or Rangers fans would have expected him to be by this point, in terms of being, to your point, Russ, like a surefire number 1D, which he's not, I don't think, right now. Again, that said, I think he slots in pretty well on LA's blue line for what they have on the left side. So I don't know. I don't know what a trade for him looks like. I don't know what, like you said, I don't think I'd be upset about it. I'm not going to be. It depends on the trade of how excited I would be.
Yeah, like don't pay too much, right? Like if it is a Jordan Spence for Keandre Miller straight up, how do you feel about that? See, like even that, like right there, when we're talking about like a lot of Kings fans consider Jordan Spence to be like one of the biggest trade pieces that LA has. So it's like, are you going to use that to bring in a player like Keandre Miller? That's kind of where I'm at. That side is exactly where I'm at there, right?
If you're using Jordan Spence as a trade asset, it's to bring in a Keandre Miller, a Bo Byram, another personal favorite of ours, Mike Matheson. That's the type of thing that you're doing, right? Is addressing LD 1/2.
Just to kind of AFP Analytics has Keandre Miller's next contract because he's an RFA, 6 years at $6 million per year.
Okay. And he's what's the, I see you got the player card there, Randon, 20, where's the age? 25. Okay. I like him. He skates really well. I think, is there another level to his game? We've seen, think he's long, so that kind of fits the LA prototype in terms of LD, as he's a big boy, and we've seen big defensemen that can't skate play well in Los Angeles and elevate their games. Imagine what a Keandre Miller could do in Los Angeles. So that, that could be something.
Does a player like, you think a player like him, like he was like their number one defensive prospect for a little bit. I know Adam Fox shot up quite a bit, but you think like a person like him might need a change of scenery to unlock his next level? Get out. I mean, not that LA is not a big town, but the scrutiny of a town like New York, or the toxic vibes that they're going through right now. Do you think I mean, you don't know him personally, but I don't know. Maybe that could kind of unlock something different.
Could be. Listen, New York may not be Canada, right, in terms of the market, like Toronto and Edmonton and all these teams. But in terms of the States, it's a lot closer to Canada than it is LA, right, when it comes to media. So there's something. There could be something there, sure. And so I'm that's the thing, is there's so many, like, I don't know which domino Holland is going to push first to knock over. Is it going to be the D? Is it going to be the forward? Because they kind of tie together, and that's where I'm like so hesitant on like going all in on one of these, because it's like there's so many different options and you don't know. I think you can make a case for a lot of them, and Keandre Miller's one of them. But I think a Miller trade, a Byram trade, almost any of these LD trades, probably you're looking at a LaFerriere or a Jordan Spence. I think you're probably starting there. I know, and again, Brent Clark's name gets brought up quite a bit by people that whenever they're looking to acquire something from the Kings. So I don't think the Kings trade.
Right, if we're giving up Brent Clark, I better see the name McCarr coming the other way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's
like
going
Thomas Harley or somebody.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, you mentioned another name during as we were discussing those players, but Mike Matheson.
Let's go, Russ.
I mean, out of all the guys we've talked about, like, that's the guy that, like, okay, like, you could get him for pretty cheap. Like, Canadians fans just want to get rid of him at this point for whatever reason. They got their shiny new toy. I think I mentioned it last time. They got the shiny new toy in Lane Hudson, and then they've almost forgot about Mike Matheson, who had 60+ points just a year ago before last year. I mean, it's like, and I believe he's got 1 year left on his deal, or 2 years. He's not. I mean, that's a guy.
1 year at 4.875.
Yeah, 1 year. Yeah. And he's going to be a free agent after that. So, I mean, I don't know, like, what the cost would be to acquire him. But, I mean, you talk about a player that could probably fit that, like, LD1 spot. I know he's got a lot of defensive struggles in his game. But like I mentioned earlier, like, I'm not worried about the defensive side at this point. Yeah. I mean, you already got the solid defensive structure in place. Like, go out and get that risk factor, like that Sean Dursey type player on the left side that the Kings have kind of been missing right now. I mean, you've already tried to ingrain it into Brent Clark already as much as you can. Like, no, give me some dynamic athleticism on the left side. I think Mike Matheson can fit that role.
Totally agree. He's a zone exit machine when it comes to, and a lot of his is with his legs too. Such a good skater. Again, totally different element than what LA has on their blue line, left or right. Because none of the even Clark and Spence don't skate quite like Matheson does. He's as smooth as he's a good one from a skating standpoint. So I like Matheson. I'm trying to figure out it. Does Montreal trade him though? Like, they just made playoffs.
I think there's a report that he and Hughes already met and they were talking about like an extension or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I mean, maybe they have Caden Gooley too. So maybe they want to give him an elevated role. I think there's some talk about what they're going to do with Logan Mailloux. That's another team that's going to have some questions about what they're going to do. They still have Alexander Carrier. Yeah, I'm curious what Montreal's going to do. But I mean, you look at like every time I see Matheson's name, and the Canadians fans are just like, we don't want him on our team. Like, oh my God, like the guy's the worst. And it's like, okay, well, I'll gladly take a guy who scored 60 plus points like last year. I think the last defenseman the Kings had that did that was Wisnowski. And man, like, no, we need a guy who's going to be able to score from the blue line. That would definitely help.
We have a trade proposal here that one of the guys we talked about: Spence plus Moore plus Turcotte plus Greentree for Byram and JJ Peterka.
No, not enough.
Nah.
If you want Byram and Peterka,
I don't even want it.
Well, first of all, yeah, this is, I don't think this wouldn't happen. But in this hypothetical, Brant Clark is long gone in this deal.
Yeah.
And
plus, this is where I think the Kings are at. Like, I think the Kings have like maybe barely enough assets, and you can talk about like who's actually untouchable and who's actually could be traded, and like obviously you can always trade players like Byfield for whoever, right? Like for the top end talent, but like let's be realistic here. Like as far as like legitimate trades, I think the Kings can make. Like I think they have enough assets to like one legitimate trade. Like you have your first round pick this year, which I think should definitely be on the table. Yep. And then maybe Jordan Spence, who we've talked about. We'll see with Trevor Moore what his value is. I don't know. Maybe, like I said, we always like to elevate players' values compared to how they're viewed across the league. But yeah, as far as like actual assets, like we may view Liam Greentree as this like, oh yeah, he's our first round pick, and look all the points he scored in the OHL. Like players score a lot of points in the OHL. Like that just happens, and then sometimes they come to the NHL, well, they just never score. So it is what it is. But as far as like action moves the Kings can make, and that's kind of where I'm at there, is like I don't know if I want to throw all those maybe good prospects. And I know Byron's good. We talked about how good he is, and Peterka's a great player. It's funny because I wanted them to draft him in 2020 in the second round, but I just don't want to be throwing a ton of assets at two players right now. Even though they're great players, and it probably would be a good trade that the Buffalo wouldn't even take.
Yeah, that's one where like they're going to want quality, right? They're going to want Clark.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, they probably want Byfield in that deal. Let's be honest.
So there's an actual trade apparently being discussed right now by a Southern California hockey team. I don't know if you guys saw this. The Anaheim Ducks are talking about acquiring Chris Kreider per Frank Saravalli.
Interesting.
That just came across right now. Apparently they're trying to reunite all the New York Rangers players. That's West
East Coast.
I thought Verbeek would just open the bag up for like a player like Bennett. It seems like a typical Pat Verbeek type guy. There's a lot of talk about Mitch Marner going there. I don't necessarily see that. Would be a good fit.
Yeah, I don't know if I see that. I don't know if I see that, but that's interesting. You guys know I've always had. I think Anaheim is just an interesting team that should be ready to take a step. They just haven't, and we'll see if a new coach does it. I don't know that Kreider moves the needle a whole lot, but
it seems like
they're so young that I sort of get it. Like they want to try to get a little bit older and get a little bit more experience, I guess. But I don't know.
What I do know is I only bet in one spot, and that is at DraftKings. So DraftKings is our sponsor here at THPN. And so when the NHL playoffs get going, you got to bet with DraftKings. And I'm looking at here at tomorrow night, and man, the odds are coming in fast. And the fastest game on ice is just about to hit another gear in the Stanley Cup final, where legends are made and every shift could turn the tide. And for now, with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can take every slapshot breakaway and overtime thriller to the next level. Now betting on the Stanley Cup final, you're in for an exciting time. Get started in a breeze by firing up DraftKings Sportsbook app, pick your team to win, lock in your wager, and you're off to the races. It's that fast, simple, and puts you right in the middle of the action. If I'm looking at the odds right now, which are subject to change, the money line has the Panthers as a favorite, negative 148. Over-under is right at 6.5, so you can maybe do a little parlay action. Here's the kicker. New customers who bet $5 will score $300 in bonus bets if that wager hits. That's right. Turn $5 into $300 Stanley Cup final payout. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN. That's promo code THPN to unlock $300 in bonus bets when your $5 bet wins only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort in Kansas. 21 age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets must win to receive reward. Minimum minus 500 yards required. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.co/audio. Copyright 2025 NHL.
So I went into, I guess Frank Saravalli published a tweet or a piece on the Kreider trade. It's for Casey Terrence. They're centered around Casey Terrence. And this isn't, you just said there's just discussions going on, but advanced talks. I guess Casey Terrence was like their second round pick a couple years ago. But they're talking about taking on all of Chris Kreider's salary, which is $6.5 million for the next 2 years. Kerry Terrence. Is that what it is?
Yeah, Kerry Terrence. Interesting.
Okay. Thanks, Kadoosh.
So prospects, and they get all of it?
Yeah. Because I think there was talks of like Kreider, obviously there were trade talks around Kreider during the deadline, but I mean, $6.5 million, even with the salary cap going up, I'm sure a lot of teams are trying to have a total flexibility, especially with a player like Marner available. So
it's for essentially a second round pick?
Probably. I can't imagine it's more than like Kerry Terrence and a third or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and it's listen, it's good move by the Rangers. And I guess if the Ducks are looking, they're going to have money to spend and they're looking to kind of fill out the depths of their roster. I guess there's worse players you can do with. I don't know. It seems expensive for what's a bottom six guy at this stage. I don't know. I guess I don't. I understand this more from the Rangers side of things more than the Ducks side of things, frankly. But
let's flip it over to maybe some other options here that we want to talk about. We started with a forward. Maybe we should kick it back to the forward groups. There's a couple big trade items, and I don't know. Like we talked about multiple times. Do the Kings really have the ammo to go big trade hunting? But local boy is rumored to be up for trade, and Jason Robertson. Any team would want a guy. I believe he's potted 40 goals before. What would something like that be? Like they're not able to come to a contract extension with Kempe, and they trade Kempe plus for Robertson, or do you think
Kempe is probably viewed equal, maybe even more so, I think, than Robertson.
My understanding as if I'm not talking to anybody, but just like the general consensus is like
from what I'm getting from all these
my sources.
If it looks like if Dallas is doing that, they're looking to free up some. They're tight, right?
Yeah,
money-wise.
They're very tight. Yeah.
So the point of this would be to kind of free up some money. So maybe there's an opportunity where it's a I don't want to say futures because obviously Dallas is,
they're in like win now. Yeah, they already got the team.
And trading Robertson would be incredibly stupid on their part, in my opinion. But like, I don't know if they're looking for solely just from a cap situation. Does Brant Clark make sense in that deal? Liam Greentree becomes a conversation. Obviously, the first round pick, Jordan Spence, like all these are the names I think at this point that you're talking about if you're looking to acquire a player of Jason Robertson's caliber. It's hard to understand what Dallas would be really looking for because, again, I got to think the only reason they look to move him is to free up money. There's got to be better ways to free up money than trading one of your best players.
I mean, I would think that they'd try to get rid of Sagan, even though he's got a no movement clause, because he's got 2 years left at like over $9 million.
Yeah.
You're not like as far as like Robertson, like I think he's a great player. I'm kind of feel the same way I did about K'Andre Miller, even though totally different players. It's just I mean, you look at the stats and they're great. Obviously, he just doesn't excite me for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. Something about Robertson, and maybe it's the way he plays. Maybe it's just some
Not
of
the
his.
fleetest of foot.
Yeah, maybe it's not. He's had some inconsistencies and maybe disappearing acts in the playoffs at times. Maybe there's that, and it's a little bit more recency bias involved in that. So maybe there's that. But as far as like trading, like you're talking about, like the Kevin Fiala trade and some, right? Like this is you have team control involved.
Yeah.
You still got 1 year left.
It's probably a pretty good comp maybe there, Russ. I don't mind.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, and even at that time, Brock Faber was just a second round pick at that time, even though he's playing well in Minnesota.
He was a pretty good.
Yeah, he had some good World Juniors too. Like he had some good.
Yeah.
He was on the big stages for a couple times, so his name was definitely out there. But yeah, I think it's just more like, do I want to be paying a player like Jason Robertson like double digit, like 10 million a year? And I just like the way I look at this like Kings lineup and the roster in the future, like I don't know, like Robertson, like it just doesn't excite me as far as like trade assets when you can go out and just sign a Mitch Marner for a couple more million per year.
Here's what I like about Robertson is he like you get guys like the Kings are they tend to be a pretty good rush team in terms of creating at least shots off the rush, and Kempe's a guy that can score off the rush. Trevor Moore can score off the rush, but they don't have a lot of like a slot presence and a net presence, and I think Robertson can bring a bit of that, because he again, not the fleetest of foot. You're probably not going to see him streaking down the wing and beating goalies as often as you would say an Adrian Kempe, but I think he's a guy that can navigate in the offensive zone, get himself into really high danger chance areas, and create and score and get opportunities in a slot area where the Kings really don't do a lot of work. So I get what you're saying, Russ. I don't even totally disagree with it, but I think he does offer a little bit of a different dynamic that I think, like kind of like the D, where they need a different dynamic on the D. They could use a little more east-west in their forward group. They got a lot of north-south. I don't think a little east-west would kill them.
Yeah, and I'll admit, like I don't watch a ton of Jason Robertson games or Dallas Stars games, but so it's just very minimal as far as
concerns are fair.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, I've seen a lot of the same concerns online, so that's just kind of where I'm at with Robertson.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'd be a good player. I think it might cost too much, and it's not really the type of player that maybe we need. But a player that we talked about, or a type of player that we talked about, who's a right shot D, who I don't know what this team would be thinking by dealing him. Jordan Kyrou has been rumored to be in the trade conversation. Love him, 27, right wing, right shot, cap hit for his skill set, 8.125 for a 70-point player. Not too shabby, especially if you're getting that cap hit for the next 5 years. That would cost a pretty penny. I don't know what St. Louis would be doing, but he's the exact type of player I think that the Kings could bring in, would help the power play, right shot, which helps balance out the forward group, which was shown that it's desperately needed. I just don't know what St. Louis is doing because he feels kind of like the heart of that team if the rumors are true. But if we're talking about tinfoil hat, he's the type of player that I could tinfoil hat on.
That's why we're here. I mean, Kyrou is Joe's guy.
Love him. I love Jordan Kyrou. Again, like similar to like with Jason Robertson, you're getting a guy that goes into areas that and is a little bit different. He's a little bit more east-west than say a general Kings forward. He's a right shot. I think he's got a really good shot. I'm a big fan of his. And the thing is, so it's like you get so excited about like, holy cow, if this guy is actually available, wow, how much do you like him? Are you trading Brad Clark for him? Are you trading Jordan Spence for him? Are you trading?
It's going to be expensive, right?
Right? He's under contract for
5 more years.
What Brandon just said, 4 more years. 8.1 million. So he's getting paid a fair number. I don't know. Again, this must if he's out there in terms of a trade, this has got to be St. Louis looking for cap relief. And quick look at their decor. A right shot D wouldn't kill him. They got a number of left shot D.
You think Spence Laugh in a first would get it done? Spence Greentree?
I think it starts with Brant Clark.
Yeah.
Randall. I don't know, man.
My train hasn't even left the station yet. It's been full. It's been at half power because of Jim Hiller and folk.
Jacques Wixon in the chat, he says Clark Laffey in a first. I think that's closer to it right there. That's really solid. That's probably like when I talk about like what the Kings have available, like that's it right there. I mean, besides like Byfield or whoever.
Would you do that? So Russ, are you doing that for? Let's play with that offer. Okay, are you doing that for Kyrou?
Man,
Lieb is punching something right now. I know.
I'd be very hesitant to be honest with you.
Are you? I assume the answer is no on Robertson.
No on Robertson. No,
okay.
I wouldn't trade for Robertson
with
that package. But that's like, I could see St. Louis cool with that too. I mean, that seems like a fair trade to be honest with you.
The fair trades are the ones where you're like,
yeah, no, it's very scary. It almost gives me like the Mike Richards trade type deal because I remember at the time, like I was a huge Simmer fan, like a big time Simmons fan, and I was very high on what Braden Shen was going to be able to bring. And so like when you traded those players, but then you go out and you watch those Mike Richards highlights, you're like, okay, hell yeah, we saw what he just did in Philly. Like let's bring that here. And I think, and not necessarily like I'm comparing like the two players or even the two trades, but it's like are the Kings like that? Mike, I mean, I feel like we're like doing this again, like with the Dubois thing, but it's like, are the Kings like that Mike Richards trade away, or do they need that Mike Richards type trade to elevate themselves to the next level? I don't know if they necessarily do that or need that, but this is close.
So, and if you look at just Kyrou, just back to back 30-goal seasons. He's had only one season in the last 3 or 4 with sub 70 points. He's a productive player.
With term
and call me crazy.
So what if the team follows that up with? So you do Clark Laffey in a 26 first. So now you're not only have holes on the left side, now you have a hole on the right side. But you get Kyrou, and then you go maybe sign Ekblad. Does the team overall better at that point?
He leaves Florida. I'm not banking on him leaving Florida.
You don't think so?
I
think he does. I mean, they brought in Jones. They're talking about re-signing Bennett. If they re-sign Bennett, and there's no way Ekblad is going to stay. I think Ekblad is going to get paid. That's another player. Yeah. Like, I think we've talked about him. Not to digress the conversation or whatever, but like with Ekblad, like I understand like a lot of the concerns with him, age and durability. As far as like getting hurt all the time, he got popped for steroid use or whatever this year already. But man, like you watch him play in the playoffs, and it's like, dude, I would love to have 5+ years of that in the playoffs. I mean, especially just that physicality that the Kings are kind of missing.
I think they have the money, though. I think
Florida?
They have the space to do it, don't they? Yeah. Like they're
that's where I say like if they sign Bennett, like I think that eats a lot of it, right?
I think let me pull. So at least according to they have 19 million in space. They have 10 forwards that are signed, and all of their forwards that are signed are players. Like they all play. Mm-hmm. So the only ones that aren't are Marchand, Bennett, and Thomas Nosek. So I think if they sign Bennett at call it 8, if he stays in Florida. They still got 11 million to play with for Ekblad, and then like a 4th line player. So I don't know. They're not swimming in cap space, right? But I think they could make it work.
Because I think Ekblad's going to get like 7.5, maybe. Yeah, I could see that. There's probably some concern. I think his AFP was around 7 to 7.5, I believe. believe.
Okay, I happen to be on Evolving Hockey right now. They got him at 7.6. So
Okay.
yeah, like I mean, if that in that scenario, if they got $19 million to play with and a Bennett plus Ekblad is 15 million, they still got 4 million to fill out, what they need one more depth forward,
Yeah.
Maybe two more
They have some
depth
good young
forward.
players too. That Mackie Samoskevich too. I really like him.
I don't know. I don't know if in a scenario where he becomes available, I think I'm certainly interested, but I definitely think that I don't know. I just kind of think he's staying in Florida.
Doesn't he seem like this is his last big contract? Does he go and try to get the money?
It depends. I mean,
you win 2 rings, so don't you try like?
Yeah, you're winning rings in Florida. Like where else?
Yeah,
like what could be better?
And they're good.
But if Florida can only pay you 7.5, but a team maybe can pay you 9 and is a playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to pay 9 though. That's the thing. But I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah,
like especially maybe a team like Anaheim, or Utah. Like those are the type of teams you're probably looking at to go out and get those. Like, okay, we need to pay money to get the experience in here.
Yeah. I don't know.
A lot of people are saying the name Marchand around. We're talking about forwards. Is he a free agent? You talked about a championship player is for like a 1 or 2 year deal. Is that a type of player that you'd want to bring in?
It is.
I mean, it is absolutely. I mean, It sounds like I go back to what Luc Robitaille said at the end of the year press conference. He mentioned, and I'm quoting him, killer instinct. And it's funny you talk about that after bringing in players that they brought in last year. But if you're still looking for that, you're probably not going to find it more in a player more than any other player than Brad Marchand, right? I mean, even with his age, he's shown he could still be a productive player. I believe he's still maybe got 1 or 2 more solid years left, and this isn't necessarily he's playing. And even right now, he's not playing like top 6 minutes. He's on the third line with Anton Lundell, so he's just still making a huge impact. And it's probably a big reason why the Panthers are up 2-1 right now. So yeah, like if the Kings don't get Marner, I would think like Marchand is like a legitimate piece that the Kings should definitely go after.
So here's my my worry with that is I think Marchand would be a solid piece to add. Don't get me wrong, but my concern is, the year before Luc Robitaille and Rob Blake talked about getting uncomfortable, so they quickly turned around and traded a 2nd-round pick for Tanner Jeannot, and then they signed Joel Edmondson to 4 years by $3.85 million. So they kind of went all in on that nonsense. Well, so what scares me a little bit about where Robitaille's at is like, okay, you're right, that's fine, but don't overdo it. Don't be handing Marchand a 3-4 year deal. That's my only concern. Like to your point, Rand, if this is a 1-2 year deal, then I'm interested, but like don't go crazy.
I'm curious though, like with Marchand, how that deal is going to look, because with the salary cap going up, like does that extra year, like you're paying him like 40 when he's 40, what I believe he's 37 right now. I believe he just turned 37. So let's say you do give him a 3-year deal and you're paying him at the 40 years old. I mean, yeah, you can look at what Corey Perry's been able to do right now at 40 years old and maybe compare the two. I mean, I think that's just few and far between. You're probably being a little too ambitious thinking that you can get that out of Marchand. But, I mean, there's always the buyout option. Not to say that's something that the Kings should utilize. So, but I'm curious, like how Marchand's next deal is going to look.
Evolving Hockey's got him at 7.2 for 3 years. Seems like a lot. No?
Right. It does. It's like, but I mean, man, watch any playoff game right now.
Yep.
I would gladly take a Brad Marchand.
I get it. I get it. So Brandon, I appreciate you bringing up Kyrou because I am a big fan of his. Can we? I want to go back to the D for a second.
Yeah.
Because we talked about some potential trade options, right? With Byram, Keandre Miller. If Montreal is willing to kind of and consider a Mike Matheson trade. And though we're mostly been talking about lefty, right? Because Gavrikov, obviously. So that's kind of where our conversation's been. And I want to throw another one out there. Where are we at with Dmitry Orlov? Free agent, Carolina Hurricanes. Certainly offers a different look, than what the Kings is. So I guess where are you at with Orlov in general? And then where would you be at with Orlov compared to, say, Byram or Keandre Miller? And again, Orlov is he's an unrestricted free agent right now.
What's his projected contract? If you have
I can get it in 2 seconds here from Evolving Hockey. I think it was in like the $4 million range. So they have him projected. So he is 33 years old, projected at a 3-year deal, $4.5 million. So just like less than $1 million more per year than Joel Edmondson makes, believe it or not.
I don't hate it. I mean, I thought it actually would come in closer to 6. I didn't realize he was that old either. I forget he's been in the league for a while now. Does he have a ring? He won with Washington, didn't he? Was he on that team?
Yeah, I think he was. I think that sounds right.
Definitely had a bad playoffs, or I don't want to say bad playoffs, but
a couple bad games, a couple highlights.
Wasn't in the good spotlight.
Couple.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I'm kind of saying, if they were able to sign Orlov at that deal and then make some other upgrades up front, I think that's pretty solid.
Would you rather? I'm going to leave Matheson out for a second just because I feel like Montreal will keep him. You veteran guy, assistant captain, their team's on the rise. It seems like a weird trade. So for now, Orlov, Miller, Byram. I think Byram is definitely your favorite there, but would you rather Orlov at the contract I just gave you or Byram at the assets plus whatever contract?
Yeah, because it's not just player, it's what's going to be.
Correct.
I would say Orlov for me because I feel like Buffalo's going to ask for the moon, and I feel like maybe the Kings aren't ready to give up the moon. So Orlov brings a different style, a little bit more puck-moving style, offensive style. $4 million is not as expensive as I thought, So if we're talking about 3x4 and like you're kind of piecing together the defense there a little bit, maybe Hiller actually allows Spence and Clark to play a little bit more. Like I don't hate it. Like I think it's something that's the Kings need is a little. Now you have 4 guys that can move the puck. Mikey Anderson's decent, and then you have a traffic cone. So like the team looks a lot better at that point, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you give me like a Brad Marchand tied to that, you think about what you're getting with Mitch Marner, just $13 million. Look what you can get with Dmitry Orlov at like 4 to 5 and Brad Marchand at like 6 to 7.
Do you think they could get Orlov, Marchand, and re-sign Kuzmenko?
Yeah. So
what's funny is like that's like one of my like top wish lists as far as this offseason. I think that'd be like a winning offseason in my book if they did that.
Yeah, because
like all three that 3 package of 3.
All 3, those 3 players right there, like that. Give me that.
Because
so you're getting a left shot, you're getting some
all
grit.
Free agents, you don't have to lose any assets, and you fill needs that this team needs, right?
Because the Marchand thing is not a that doesn't solve the top line winger problem. You know what I mean? So that if you consider that, like you still need to go get another one, and so that's maybe it's Kuzmenko. Have you?
Because Kuzmenko revolutionized the power play, and I think a right shot is needed.
Well, what's funny is like I'm glad you brought up Kuzmenko. It's like when I looking up and down the forward like free agents, like Kuzmenko is probably like one of the best. Like I put him right up there with Marner just based off of like value of what you're getting, and we already know what Kuzmenko was on this team, and it's tough to evaluate him, especially looking at his track record years past because he's done this in the past. He did that in Vancouver. We had the real solid first year where he scored 35 plus goals, and then he fell off in the second year. Maybe that was a lot pointed to Rick Tocchet. But he had that first year in Calgary, or this first stint in Calgary. And the next year, he kind of just fell off. And then he went to Philadelphia, didn't really do much, and he came to LA, and look how great he was. So, I mean, but like you look at what Kuzmenko was able to bring, and you kind of look at what his cost is going to be. And I think it's going to be like inexpensive. You could probably get him at like a 2 to 3 year deal, like $5 to $6 million. I mean, if he can have that same impact he had in a short time in LA, again over that span at that cap hit, like he's like right up there as far as like players I would love to see the Kings bring in.
Is Evolving Hockey's 4 years at $5.1 million.
It's not terrible. I'd just be very worried about.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Because like we don't know what he's been after year one anywhere else. Or I mean, we do know, but you don't know if you're going to get the same thing.
Right.
But as far as go back to Orlov, I mean, that's kind of what happens when you sign a player like Orlov, who kind of fills the need that you have. Maybe not necessarily the LD1 that you're looking for, but when you're signing him for that low of a cap hit, you have that space to bring in a Brad Marchand, to bring in a Andrei Kuzmenko, maybe even a player that we haven't mentioned. Another one I've considered is Jack Roslovic, who I've always thought they need a right shot in the dot in the faceoff circle, and Roslovic kind of fits that role. He does really well in as far as defensive faceoffs, so maybe that helps a little bit. No, it's not necessarily a huge need, but definitely helps and has been a productive player. I just like you get the value too to bring in those other players if you sign a player like Orlov.
I'm with you on Roslovic, by the way. I think he can fill out a third line. You know, now again, hey, maybe depends on what they do with the rest of the roster, Phil Deneau, whatever. But Roslovic can play some center, can play some wing. We're not going to go the whole show and not talk about Brock Besser, who's been like rumored to the Kings for like ever. Where are we at with Brock Besser, guys? Like, I don't know.
What's his contract rumored at right now? Probably 9.5.
Yeah, I think he's right around 9. I'll tell you in just a second. So Besser per Evolving Hockey, anyways, is projected at 7 years, $8.1 million. 28 years old.
Scares me, man.
What was that again? Sorry.
28 years old. Oh, the contract?
Yeah, I was reading one of the comments.
7 by 8.1.
See, that's the thing. It's common
That's
sense.
not terrible.
But common sense in the chat says, give me Besser over Kuzmenko. And I'm like, I'm not with that. Like, I actually view Kuzmenko as far as like what this team needs. And like, if I put him in isolation, I would say obviously Besser is a better player than Kuzmenko. I'm not arguing that. But as far as what the team needs, like Kuzmenko, give me Kuzmenko over Besser. Because I don't know. And you kind of couple that with what he's going to cost too. Like, I'd just be very wary of signing a player like Brock Besser, giving him $8 million per. This kind of scares me. And I feel the same way with Nikolai Ehlers too. We can just couple those two together because I know Besser's a righty and I believe Ehlers is a lefty.
Mm-hmm.
But both of those players I feel the same way about. I just don't think they bring the value of what they're going to require as far as contract wise.
Common sense coming in here. Oh, sorry. I didn't know you were done.
No, I was going to say, I don't know. I'm with you. Like, I don't know where I'm at with Besser either. I mean, I think, listen, he's an NHL goal scorer. But like he popped off the 1 year, right? Did he score 40, I think, a couple of years ago? But the consistency hasn't quite been there. But he's established himself as he can score, I think a floor for him is like 25 goals. You should get close to 30 out of him.
If you're paying $8 million, you better be getting 30 out of him.
Yeah, true.
Since his 20-year-old year, you have 29, 26, 16, 23, 23, 18, 40, 25.
In some of the COVID years, but yeah, it seems like
so only 1 year did he score 30. And it happened to be 40.
And he's only played over COVID year though. Yeah, I mean he's often been injured, missing. He's never played a full season. He played 1 year at 81 games, but the rest has been low 70s or less.
So he's had 2 years where looks like he's paced at a 30 goal pace. The 2021 COVID season where he had 23 goals and 56, and then he scored 40.
Yeah, I'm not there. Not there on Besser. I don't know what it is. I can't get it.
The term, it's a big deal. That's, I mean, if we talk about it a lot on the show. Like, it's like, man, so much of the issue that I got with it is the term on the deals. Like, it's hard handing out 7-8 years, Russ.
But that's free agency.
It is.
Especially now, right?
Yeah.
But that's tough to do for guys that are like, that you don't know. Am I getting 7 years out of this guy? I'm with you. I don't know that I'm in on a Besser 7-year deal. I really don't.
I've been starring some fan questions here because we're about almost at an hour and a half. Maybe some quick bangers here. Pavel Zacha may be available. Any thoughts?
Right now, I don't think there's a fit. I mean, I think he's played mostly center where he's been. He probably play the wing though, I think too. I don't know. If you were to, I think the conversations around Zacha and probably Roslovic, if Deneau gets dealt in a deal, I think maybe something like that can make some sense. But I don't know. I don't know where the Zacha talk is. That a thing? I mean, right now Boston's like number one center right now.
Well, I don't know. Our fans are asking about it, Joe. That's why I'm asking you.
I just want to stay far away from all the Boston players. It seems like they're going to be having a fire sale here soon.
So you're saying
I'm very concerned Nikita Zadorov's going to be a king. That's what I'm saying.
You're saying that there's a little fire sale going on. Maybe all the brick and mortar stores are closing down, so they're having 50% off, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think they're going to be willing to take on just assets just to clear out cap space.
Dante Fabro, what do you guys think?
I'm actually a big fan of Fabro. I mean, so at the beginning of the year, he was waived by Nashville, had a real rough start with Nashville, went to Columbus, was claimed by Columbus, I believe, in November, and then kind of just turned his career around and averaged like 20-plus minutes a night. I believe he was playing on the top pair with Zach Werenski. And you look at a lot of his numbers, had career numbers in terms of points, and his like analytics looked great. So, I mean, to have that on a team like Columbus, I believe he's only like 26 years old, and his contract is expected to be like $5 million per year for like 4 years. Obviously, you have to probably use Spence in a trade to bring in maybe like a Keandre Miller to pair him with, but maybe that's a decor I can get behind.
Yeah, I mean, if Spence is out in a deal like a hypothetical deal like that, then I think Fabro makes a lot of sense. But right shot D, his age, a lot of teams, I got to think they're going to be.
Yeah, he's going to be. I mean, if Ekblad does stay, I mean, Fabro is like
the number one right D.
Yeah, right. It's crazy. Talk about a guy who kind of turned his career around. I was just looking into him a little bit. I mean, that's a guy. He was waived. I mean, this is kind of where the Kings at or need to be at or need to go. Is they need to find more Warren Fogle type players. Those players, those value players that nobody's looking at, or maybe they fell off in other spots, and then now you sign them to a cheaper deal, and they come here and they just pop off. And credit to Rob Blake. I thought he did a tremendous job with Warren Fogle signing. We were all high on that. Maybe he got a little bit more production out of that, what we all expected it to be, which was great. So yeah, you just need to go out and find those players. I think Fabro can be that. Even at $6 million, I wouldn't be too upset. I think he can still be that player. But yeah, you just need to find those Warren Fogle type players. Florida got Gus Forsling off waivers, and he's turned out to be an incredible player for them. So it's like, who's available out there that can be that? And in free agency, it's tough to find him.
Common sense coming in here. I like Byram, but why not go all out for Power? Do you think you could get Power for the Clark laughing a one?
I think the reason why you don't go all out for Power is I don't know if the Buffalo's trading him.
Yeah,
that's the only reason. Like, He's under contract. He's signed. He was just picked first overall a couple of years ago. And the biggest reason that one of the biggest reasons I think that Byram is probably coming up in conversation is he's due a contract. You know, he's an RFA. So I think that really is kind of part of the catalyst here as to why he's become available. So I think the reason why they won't Power is I think they view Power as a pretty big part of the future there.
That's an extremely hard sell to your fan base that's already pissed off to trade a number 1 overall pick. After they're watching Jack Eichel, number 2 overall pick, win a Stanley Cup, and you're watching. I mean, I shared that graphic with you guys. They have 4 or 5 guys from the 18-19 team on Florida right now, and Reinhart, Rodriguez.
Evan Rodriguez, man, shoot.
That's another name, right there, Look at he's popping off on a playoff team that's probably going to win.
Again, he didn't in Colorado. Won a cup in Colorado. Mm-hmm. Does everything right.
I think we talked about. I think the fourth line, as far as players that's something. That's another avenue I think the Kings need to upgrade on if they don't bring back Jeannot. And I think I'm not necessarily saying that they shouldn't bring him back, but I think you can do better there in that position. I mentioned Jack Roslovic a little bit earlier. I mean, he was scratched at times in Carolina, which is so funny because he scored 19 goals last year. And then he was a healthy scratch even in the playoffs. I mean, that's a player you can go out and get and maybe get a lot of value in. I've looked at other names like Adam Gaudette from the Ottawa Senators, who could be very cheap. He had a real productive year. He's another right shot, can take faceoffs too. But yeah, I think that's because I mean, we just watched the Kings, Jim Miller just trot out a top 9 and really lean on 9 guys and sit the fourth line throughout seemingly every game. I mean, look at what Florida's fourth line has been able to do and get under the skin and Gadjevich and Greer and Nosek, those players that they're getting some good value out of and impact. So I think the Kings, as much as maybe Sammy Helenius can maybe up his game a little bit and Alex Turcotte maybe sticks on the fourth line depending on what they do, but you need to go out and get another legitimate piece. And it's tough because I wanted to really see what Tanner Jeannot could bring in the playoffs. I just think that you can do a little bit better there.
I'm really
I think any line without Trevor Lewis is an upgrade.
Exactly.
True.
Very true.
Sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I'm really interested in Jack Roslovic.
Yeah, me too.
Russ. I really, really am. I think when I look at that, he can skate so well. I look at it from a bottom 6, right shot, depth scoring too. Again, as we said, everybody, yes, the playoffs are a different game. It's more physical, it's tighter, but these depth players are playing roles. They're scoring goals in these playoffs. You got to have production throughout your lineup because it gets only harder and harder and harder the deeper you go. Your top guys are going to get honed in on. You need to have depth scoring. I think a Roslovic is the type of guy that can potentially do that.
Common Sense coming in with another one, but more of a value thing. What do we do with Moore? Keep, trade? What is the value of a Trevor Moore? I know Joe's always been high on him, predicted his biggest season. What do you think the rest of the league views him as? He's a responsible player, so he fits really well in the LA Kings system. Can he play on another team that's maybe more run and gun? Is he kind of stylistically hindered in that way? What do you guys feel about him and maybe fits elsewhere? Because he does have a cap hit that could help the Kings make some moves.
And he doesn't have a no-move clause.
Yeah.
Like a Phil Deneau, for example. Yeah, I like the player. I'm contractually obligated to like him after he scored 30 goals, I think. But no, I still like him. I think he's a really good player. I think he's creative. I think he's got a really good shot. But that said, understand that you've got to give to get in certain deals. And I don't know that, I keep going back to Buffalo and this whole Byram thing. And again, they're looking for this, more like that middle 6, roll your sleeves up, get to work, but he can score. He can create plays. I think Buffalo needs more of those type of players Again, I don't know what you do to Moore to get. Same like I said earlier with LaFerriere, just Trevor Moore plus what get Bo Byram, and is that they might even hang up if you offer Trevor Moore if he's even in the conversation. I don't know. That's the other part, Brandon, is like I have no idea either how he's valued around the league. So I
would think he'd be pretty valuable. $4.2 million is not a hot
for a guy that scored 30.
Yeah, exactly.
And you should probably get comfortably 20 out of him. Yeah, this is a good player.
Penalties. Yeah,
this is a good
player. That's
player.
with Moore too, right? It's like you trade him away. It's tough to find a player as valuable as he would be at his cap hit. The thing where I'm at it with Moore, I would like to see Alex Turcotte in that spot.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. I don't necessarily, and I'm not saying Turcotte can be as productive as Moore, but like this is why you drafted him 5th overall, right? Like, give him like a legitimate chance to showcase that talent. Like, no need to be hindering him on the 4th line. I know you gave him some run time on the 1st line, and I thought he did pretty well before kind of struggling a little bit toward the end. But yeah, I feel like that would be a perfect spot for Alex Turcotte. Then you can open up some cap space and maybe even utilize Moore in a trade. So that's just kind of where I'm at. I'm not saying you need to just get rid of Moore. I'm just saying I would like to see Turcotte to take that spot, and then you open up some cap space on the other side.
I mean, you look at it, either way, say, going back to the Byram thing, like if it's Moore or if it's LaFerriere, both those guys are going to make close to the same money, right? So you're saving, and not saving because you're going to pay Byram, but that's the genesis of the deal is to open up a little bit more space. Figure Moore, you're opening up 4.1. LaFerriere, you're going to open up, I don't know, 3 to 4-ish.
Yeah.
So you're in a similar, range. So, I know right now, like LaFerriere, when you do the deal, it doesn't open up money because he's a RFA, but like he's going to get the money. Yeah. So, I like Trevor Moore. I'm not itching to trade him, but again, this is an off season where who knows where Ken Holland, because it's hard to say because he says he wants to be aggressive and make some big swings, but at the same time he says this team needs just a couple tweaks. Mm-hmm. So how that all ends up coming together.
Has he mentioned how many points that the Kings have gotten?
I don't know if I heard that. How many did they end up with? Yeah.
I know sometimes when I tweak my back, it hurts really bad. So maybe that's the type of tweak he's talking about.
There you go.
I want to touch on Philip Deneau as another trade piece because he's got a 10-team no trade clause that kicked in last year. How do we view him? Because I've thought about it, and like I know he had a real solid playoff, so he was probably one of the better Kings forwards in the playoffs. I thought he had some real strong games. He only had 8 goals last year. And I know you're not paying Phil Deneau or even you signed him to be a productive player in terms of goal production. 8 goals, though? Like, Alex Turcotte scored more goals. And I'm not saying, like, he can be a better center than what Phil Deneau brings. But, when you're paying him $5.5 million, like, I feel like that's a position that the Kings can maybe look to upgrade. I struggle at that spot.
With the no trade clause, when did they have to enter their teams that they're allowed to be traded to?
I think at the contract, right? At the beginning of the contract.
Is it change every year?
10-team no trade list, so it's like you got 22 other teams you can trade them to if you wanted to.
Is that how it works? Is it 10-team no trade list, or is it like that's 10 teams they can be traded to, or is it 10 teams that you can't be traded to?
I believe that's how it works. I could be wrong.
Anyways,
when you see that, I think a lot of people just put the Canadian teams in there. There's the majority of those no trade clauses, or even just stay on the East Coast or stay on the West Coast, whatever it is. I don't know. Just with Deneau, I'm just kind of like, I don't know where I stand with him. What, $5.5 million per year? A couple more years left?
Yeah, let me check.
2 years left, if I'm not mistaken. I think at this point, because now, he's certainly more of like a 3C from as opposed to when he got here, he was kind of brought in to be 2C.
2 years and 5.5.
Okay. So talk about Alex Turcotte, like again, similar situation, Russ. Like, this is where you want Turcotte at this point.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a potentially big drop off, right?
Mhm.
Because, like, yes, he only scored the 8 goals, but he's going to get you in the 40s in points. Like Turcotte hasn't done that. He can't.
He was going there when I lost the bet.
He was. Are you filling that? Do you envision filling Danault with Turcotte, or do you envision filling Danault with a different centerman? I think that because I don't know how trading Danault and then slotting in, say, Turcotte makes the Kings better, because I don't know that you can bank on Turcotte being available in playoffs. Maybe I see that's where in the chat, that's where the Pavel Zacha maybe thing came into play, was for him to play 3C. Okay. Now I'm more into that, I guess. I'm not going to sit here and like pound the drum or beat the drum for Pavel Zacha, but I think he's fine. I in a lesser role, so a third line role, I think he's fine. But
he has 2 years at 4.7.
So kind of this, then at that point, like, you're kind of the same deal.
Yeah.
A couple million, or not a million, a couple hundred, 300,000, 400,000. Like, then that's a downgrade, and you're not saving money.
Yeah, another center that's kind of been floating out there, sounds like he's going to get traded, is Marco Rossi. What do you think about him? He's like 5'9" out of Minnesota, young player still, 22, 23 years old.
I mean, I really liked him in the draft.
Yeah.
I like the player. Here's the thing, and this is I hope Johnny Utah is still in here. I'm a sucker for big centers. And so I don't know if he's a guy that can try. I haven't seen enough of him to know if he somebody that can transition to wing, or if he's somebody that can be more of like, he's probably better than a 3C, but is he a player that, he can be, for now, the third center behind Byfield and Kopitar if they in a Danault trade, and then kind of evolves into that 2C.
Well, he played 2C this year for Minnesota, at 82 games, 24 goals, 36 assists at 60 points.
Yeah, I think he's a good little player.
23 years old. So, he's probably getting, 6.5 as an RFA?
Yeah.
For 60-point player?
I'm not interested.
And then the offer sheet for that contract is a first and a third.
That's not terrible, to be honest with you. Yeah, but kind of with Joe on that one, it's like, I feel like that
would be an acquisition, because I think if Minnesota's got envisions on Rossi being a future 1C, I don't know, but could he be 2C behind Quentin Byfield?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking.
I'm not like
for a Kings team that's trying to win. You have one more year of Kopitar playing 2C. Hopefully Byfield's playing 1. You have Rossi playing the 3 for 1 year, and then you can reevaluate. Like, you have to pay him $6 to $7 million. I think you have to pay him close to $7 million to not get Minnesota to honor to match the contract.
Mm-hmm.
You probably have to overpay a little bit. Maybe not. I don't know.
I think they're willing to just move him, it sounds like.
Yeah, so they got Rossi at $6 million.
They have money, though, which is weird, right? Like,
a first and a third, though, is nothing for a player that scores 60 points.
I don't disagree with that, Randon. Like, I kind of don't hate that offer sheet idea.
Why not? And you're not removing any real assets from your team. The first round pick isn't helping you this year or even next year or the year after. So, why not?
I think the Kings, and maybe this is just a like a overall thought process. But I think the Kings just need some like name recognition as far as like star power as to go along with the impact. This is like Marco Rossi's like, obviously in the hockey world we view him, and maybe this just doesn't even matter as far as on ice impacts, but it's like it doesn't move the needle for me a lot. And maybe if you bring him in along with a Brad Marchand, like okay, then we're talking. But I just kind of feel the same way I do with Rossi as I do with some other players that we've talked about.
I mean, first and a third, I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah,
it's a good deal. Yeah.
In terms of the forwards that we've talked about, there's others that I like better. But when I also think of the Kings center position in 2 years, what is it?
Yeah, exactly.
So when I think of it that way, then I'm a little bit more maybe more a little bit more interested in Rossi.
And a 3x6 is what you said? I mean,
actually, I was looking at AFP. They had his deal at like 7x7. Maybe that's just the extra year.
Probably the Evolving Hockey has him at 6x6.1 or something. So it'll be costly, but like,
but six for a 23-year-old, then he's shown that he's well, and $6 million is nothing, right? We're paying Dano for $5 million.
Yeah.
True. The elephant in the room here is like Quentin Byfield has got to be the 1C. He's got to take it over. He's got to be the Quentin Byfield we've seen the second half of the season, each of the past 2 seasons for the full. And I think he can be. I thought it last year. I'm still bullish. I still think he's an absolute horse, because if that doesn't work,
then we just trade our next 56 ones for Connor McDavid.
if QB doesn't become 1C like tomorrow, there's a problem.
I think he needs to start the season with Fiala and Kempe.
Well,
we have to be done with this Kopitar Kempe thing. Like, you're limiting your best forward or your best winger.
But if you think I know not to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but just sticking with Rossi for a second, like this is a guy that you don't need him to be your 1C. You've got QB. If they can bring him in to be that second center in a couple years,
we scored more points than Byfield.
Ooh, that hurts, Russ.
So I mean, it's like be the 1C.
That stings.
On a less productive team. Who was Rossi playing with primarily?
Good question. I don't know, honestly. Is Marty Natchez the center? Because he seems to be miserable again.
I don't know. Is he? I thought he was a winger.
Yeah, he's played. I think he has played center, but he's mostly a winger.
I mean, if he's available, he's one more year left at $6 million or something, then he's UFA or RFA.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we really don't have a Rantanen to trade for him.
Well, I love this idea from Jacques. Rossi and Kempe would be magic. Yeah, sign me up. Sign me up. Is it actually? Isn't Rossi? Is he Swiss?
Yeah,
I thought he was Austrian.
Austrian, maybe that's what it is.
Swiss or Austrian, one of them.
he played in the Swiss league, I thought.
That could be.
He's from Austria.
Austria.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rossi's interesting. Kind of thinking about it more.
I'm getting a little bit more interested in it, Russ, if that. But again,
I mean, if you already have a 6'5" guy, you can put him with the 5'9". It kind of averages out to 6 foot.
that's how they do it. But Russ, like realistically, do you like?
So he primarily played with Boldy and Zuccarello.
Okay.
And then when Kaprizov came back, he was playing with Kaprizov and Zuccarello.
Interesting. He's definitely producing.
Is Dano going anywhere? Like realistically, do you think there's something there?
I could see it.
Possibility?
I could see it. Like I could see I mean, it's kind of weird at where we're at right now, right? Like Ken Holland, I mean, who knows? Like
we just
sounds like
Lou
Robinson just giving him the keys and just say, here you go, run with it.
He's a player though that like I feel like NHL GMs would value they would value a Danault. Very, very solid in the playoffs. Two-way guy, penalty kill guy that can put up 40 to 50 points on the right roster. Decent cap hit for a team that's trying to. He's, it seems like a player that, like a Edmonton Oilers would take a chance on. Like they've like a veteran team that needs just like a 3C that, like I think, not the Oilers, but a team like the Oilers.
No, yeah, even like Montreal or Ottawa, these younger teams that maybe they need like a
Toronto,
veteran presence.
Yeah, shoot,
Toronto,
Montreal. Yeah, those would be
trading back to Montreal.
Fit.
Yeah, Danault for Matheson. I think somebody mentioned it earlier. Sign me up. I'm all for that.
Danault for Matheson. Figure out a Rossi deal. We're cooking.
I mean, what's your guys' before we get out of here? What's your guys' ideal offseason? What's your dream offseason? Brandon, you go first.
Yeah.
Sorry.
My dream offseason would, obviously be just let's swing for the fences and go get Marner. Like that'd be great. I think the storylines would be great. It'd be a lot for us to talk to. You'd have a superstar here for the next 8 years or 7 years, So I think that would be great. But what an offseason that I would be like happy with, like let's not, I would say not resign Gavrikov and try to get a left shot D that can move the puck a little bit. It doesn't have to be a super impact guy like a Byram, but I'd be happy with an Orlov. And I'd be actually happy with what I said earlier. Orlov, Marchand, and Kuzmenko, get some offensive guys, get some scoring or blue line movement from the blue line. Like I'd be like, okay, like Kuzmenko revolutionized the power play. You're getting a rat in Marchand that has tons of playoff experience, about to win, probably another ring. The type of guy that is going to pull the rest of the team into the muck. And then, and Orlov, I'd be fine with a player like that. I think an offseason that I would not be okay with just like sitting on our hands, like and just signing a couple guys here and there, and not really doing much of anything because we scored 105 points.
Re-sign Gavrikov, sign like someone else, and that's it. No, I feel you.
I think the dream for me is legit top 4 left D and a scoring winger. Now, whether that is Orlov and Marner, great. Whether that's acquiring Byram and then re-signing Kuzmenko, I'm in on that too. Very much in on that. I think that makes plenty of sense. So those two, I'd be very, very happy with those types of moves. But man, I'm gonna have to look into this Rossi thing a little bit more, just because the more I think about it, the more the center position really makes me nervous in short order here. I know the Danault thing is a pretty big wrinkle in that, but the off season for me for me to get excited, needs to have a puck transporting left D capable of playing top 4, and another scoring winger, preferably a right shot. Does it have to be Marner? Does it have to be Byram? There's probably names out there that we talked about a lot of different guys today. These are the ones that are kind of quote unquote commonly out there. There's probably other guys that, that aren't maybe as talked about as much that could be acquired. So, but it needs to be those. Like otherwise, yeah. Like if it's Jamie Alexiak, and then
Cody CC,
then don't even. Then
we had to bring him up once.
Then I'm upset again. But there's an avenue here, and I still don't know, just because when you look at how good these cup contending these are big boy teams, and even if you did add, say, Byram and Marner or whatever, Orlov and Marner, like that's huge upgrades, right? But when you look at the teams that you're in competition with, and you look at the back ends of those teams, like those are real. Those are fun.
Yeah, but I think you could also hope for like Clark could take a huge step,
Sure,
and that
that's
would be
fair. Good
yeah.
point.
And a healthy Doughty.
Yeah. Before Russell, you get
Fair,
to
very
yours. I want to add another thing. I hope for a Kempe extension. I think Kempe wants to be here long term.
I like that.
I think getting that done early, rewarding him for being probably the best player on the ice for the team, getting that done and out of the way so he's not going into camp or like having that question constantly being asked to him during the season. Let's just get that out of the way and sign him in the offseason and not have that be a issue hanging over his head.
And I'll say this, Rando, you've been a Kempe guy for before it was cool to be a Kempe guy, because I was somebody that was definitely didn't think that he was going to be what he's turned into. Hell of a freaking player.
That might be my biggest sports take ever. Was back in Kempe before it was cool. Yeah.
You were. I remember you very much were.
There's a lot of question marks about him when he was playing center. I mean, he was just like, what do we got here?
Yep.
And he blew up. I remember.
What about you?
Although I did say Kupari just needs a chance, and that didn't work out. So we don't win them all.
He's getting a chance in Europe. He'll be all right.
What about for you, Russ? Although I agree with you, right? With the Marchand, Orlov, and Kuzmenko.
That's kind of like more like that's right there as far as like what I'd like to see. I mean, as far as like dream to get like a little bit more specific, I wouldn't mind like a more for Matheson trade. I don't know what how each team's value each of those players, but just to kind of couple, I guess you could do more plus just to open that spot. Like I said, or even if you bring in a Marchand, you can put Marchand there in that spot and then have Turcotte be that kind of floater. He maybe plays a fourth line role, maybe elevates a little bit more. But yeah, you have that solid, legitimate lefty 2, lefty 1 that could play, because I think Matheson can be an LP1. I think he's a great player. Gets a lot more grief for his defensive end struggles than I think he should. But I mean, if you pair him with Doughty and then you have Anderson and Clark and Edmondson Spence, I think that's a pretty solid decor right there. And then, like I mentioned with Marchand already in the third line, I think that's that killer instinct that the Kings need. I've mentioned Roslovic a couple times, or even Adam Gaudette. I think a fourth line upgrade would be good. Even if it's Tanner Jeannot, it is what it is. Just don't re-sign Trevor Lewis for the love of God. Just don't need him. And then as far as up front, Kuzmenko, as long as it's not a long-term deal, I'm not upset at a 2-year deal. Even if you have to pay him a higher AAV just to make it a short-term deal, because then it lowers the risk. And we've seen what he can be already in the short stint. So if you add those 3 players in Kuzmenko, Marchand, Matheson, I'm pretty happy with it.
And then there's always the unknowns of the RFAs. We talked about Rossi and a lot of RFAs that are good contracts. And I think, Paterka would cost a first. We don't have a second, so we'd have to do.
Yeah.
Because I think the only offer sheets that we can offer are the offer sheet over 10 million and then the one under 7 million, because we don't have a second. That middle ground is a first, second, and a third, I think.
I think it's for next year, though.
Is it not 2026? Isn't next year 2026, or is it 2027?
I think it's for next year's draft, not this year's draft. Yeah.
Somebody said that in the chat, and I didn't know what next means, because technically the next draft is the 2026 draft. But if it's a 2027, then we can offer anybody. Then why not? Everybody's open. I wouldn't mind the Kings being aggressive in that. That to me, Rossi seems like a guy. It's like, okay, he's a 60-point player. You're getting a guy that could be a 2C for 7 years at $7 million, $6.5 million. Like, that seems like a no-brainer for me. He's 5'9" and is shaped like a bowling ball, but he puts up points. Like, it just is what it is.
You got to be a pretty scrappy dude to put up 60 points as a 5'9" skater. And we're not. We love the short guys, the short Kings. You were a big Lane Hudson fan, so
you were
on that before a lot of people. So, if he's been productive already, like I said, he's put up more points than Byfield has so far. I'm getting behind that a little bit more too. That we talk about it.
I am so over. I'm so over the size Kings in sports in general. Like, it's a different game in every single sport now. There's people that are very capable and all-stars that are small. Like, let's just stop. Like, Rossi's size isn't going to be a problem, just like Brant Clark's size isn't going to be a problem. I don't know who thinks he's small at 6'2", 205, 210. Like, he's not a small kid. Like, all this, like, you need to be 225 pounds to play in the NHL. Like, miss me with that noise. So, and, you know, all these small guys in the NFL that take hits, everybody's like, oh, there's higher injury risk. And yet every single year you have guys that are 230-pound running backs blowing their knees out. So just miss me with it. You know, if he's a good player, he's a good player. I really don't care how big he is. We don't need every player on the team to be 225 pounds.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited. There's a bunch of, I think more teams will be looking at the offer sheet options because of what the Blues did. And I think whether it's the Kings or another team, that's going to be some interesting splashes to see what happens this year. And maybe there's going to be none because we all think there's going to be some. But that's the whole point of the rumor mill and the foil hat season. Pleasure doing business with you guys tonight. We're going to have more of these as the offseason unfolds. We're doing another draft episode on Thursday night with NFL Draft Pros talking about, I think we're going to be talking about 10 prospects there and be available at that range. So get your prospect hat on. Please follow us at hockey_royalty for all you Twitter X people. And then hockeyroyalty.com for all the articles coming out. Guys, it's been a crazy episode, crazy off season. Hopefully we get some of our wishes. Hopefully the Christmas tree has a little bit of the gifts that we're looking for this off season. And we don't get a bunch of coal. That's all I'm hoping for. So as you guys know, always on this podcast, go Kings go.